Temporary home return permit services at 4 designated border control points for those who fail to renew their permits in time for their trips. The Star Ferry raises its fares. And in Russia, a well-known military blogger who supports the invasion of Ukraine killed in a cafe explosion. Hello and welcome to TVB News. With Qingming Festival and Easter just around the corner, more than 450,000 people have already crossed the border to visit the mainland over the past 2 days. As many local residents' home return permits expired when travel restrictions were in place during the peak of the pandemic, temporary permit services for inbound travelers are now available at 4 designated border control points. Timothy Lee reports.
Come Wednesday, Hong Kong will begin its long April holiday period, stretching from Qingming Festival to the end of Easter. Many of those who are planning to head north to the mainland have also found themselves with expired home return permits, as the border was mostly closed for the last few years. But getting a valid permit at this time may be difficult, as crowds have rushed to renew their identification documents in preparation for the holidays. This woman, who tried to renew her permit at a service center in Kowloon Bay, said her family applied for the renewal back in March, but had to wait for 3 months. Those who wish to apply for new home return permits or renew their old permits need to complete an online registration beforehand. They can then collect the identification documents at 5 permit service centers across the city. As of now, the quota for home return permit applications is already full and will only become available again on August 1st. To alleviate the situation, at 4 designated border control points, a travel agency is offering services for one-time travel permits that remain effective for 3 months. Local residents acquiring the temporary permits will need to present their Hong Kong ID cards and expired home return permits. The service comes with a charge of $570. Meanwhile, residents could be seen at the airport preparing for the trips abroad. Among the top destinations is Japan, with over 20 flights departing from the city between the morning and noon each day. Some travel agencies posted on social media the immigration situation at Tokyo's Haneda Airport last night. The area was almost completely packed with tourists. According to a travel agency spokesperson, the recent cherry blossom season is partially responsible for the tourism spike in Japan. He added that due to the lack of airport personnel, in cities such as Tokyo and Osaka, it takes close to 3 hours for inbound travelers to go through the immigration process. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
Star Ferry fare rises took effect today. With around a 50% increase, it will cost up to $6.50 for a trip, and the elderly can no longer enjoy a free ride. Jackie Lin on what people think of the charges.
To keep this 125-year-old icon afloat amid financial woes, starting Monday, the Star Ferry has raised its fares by around 50%. That's the second time in recent years after the 15% price hike in February 2021. Adults riding on the upper deck of the ferry running between Central and Tsim Sha Tsui will have to pay $5 on weekdays. Weekend journeys now cost $6.50. No more free rides for the elderly and people with disabilities. Their official fares are the same as children at $2.90 on weekdays or $3.90 at weekends. But under the government's discounted public transport scheme, the elderly could pay at a $2 concessionary rate. Some find the 50% price jump too much.
50% is a big leap upwards. You should have 20-25% is reasonable.
Others say it's worth it to save an iconic symbol of Hong Kong.
It's heritage, so you want to keep it running the way it's running for so many years now, so I don't mind paying extra for it.
Even if it's raised by a few dollars, I still think it's affordable, and it's worth it.
As a tourist, I don't think the price is such an issue because we know that we're coming to spend, but it's probably more of a local issue, the price increase.
The Star Ferry operator has been recording losses since 2018, and the company has relied on debt to run its franchise services. The government eventually approved its price hike proposal, but the rate of increase has been moderated. After the price hike, the Star Ferry is still the cheapest way to cross the harbor via public transport. In fact, it costs 30 to 50% less than the MTR and buses. Check it in TVB News.
The first mandatory school trip to the mainland under Hong Kong's senior secondary education curriculum set off to Guangzhou and Shenzhen today. Some 250 students are participating in the two-day program. They will have exchanges with mainland students, visit enterprises in Nansha, and a startup hub in Guangdong called Qianhai Shengang Dream Workshop. The Education Bureau expects around 50,000 students to have participated in the mainland trips by the end of August. The visit is part of the Citizen and Social Development subject, which replaces liberal studies as one of the core subjects under the Diploma of Secondary Education exams. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and French President Emmanuel Macron will visit China together from Wednesday to Friday. That's according to the Chinese Foreign Ministry. Von der Leyen is expected to meet with Macron for a working lunch today. Issues including Russia's war on Ukraine and preparations for their trips to China, including a joint meeting with President Xi Jinping, will likely be discussed. Von der Leyen said last week that Europe needed to de-risk diplomatically and economically with China, which she says was becoming more repressive at home and more assertive abroad. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said today China will take this visit as an opportunity to provide more stability and positive energy to a world fraught with uncertainties. Left-wing Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin's Social Democrats have lost the Nordic country's parliamentary election. The opposition right-wing National Coalition Party claimed victory and is expected to win 48 out of the 200 seats, slightly ahead of the Nationalist Finns Party with 46. Matthew Bray reports.
Celebrations at the meeting place of the National Coalition Party after the results of the election became clear. With over 93% of votes in, the NCP looks set to get 48 seats. The party had led in the polls for almost 2 years and had vowed to rein in spending and stop the rise of public debt, which had reached 70% of GDP since Sanna Marin took office in 2019. Its leader is Petteri Orpo, a former finance minister.
I think that we are clear alternatives to the left-wing government, and people are very worried about our economy. And we have good program how to boost our economy, what kind of reforms we are going to do, and this was our message. We will fix our country.
Orpo said Marin had eroded Finland's economic resilience at a time when Europe's energy crisis, driven by Russia's war in Ukraine, has hit the country hard and the cost of living ballooned. Orpo is open to negotiate with all groups to obtain a majority in Parliament, while Marin said her Social Democrats may govern with the NCP, but will not go into government with the Finns Party, which she considers too right-wing for her taste.
So I think the negotiations will be hard, but in the end, I think Finland will have a majority government in place, and of course we hope that we can continue our work.
Marin's party has 43 seats, while the Finns Party, which ran on an anti-immigration and anti-EU platform, has 46. The Finns Party also wants deficit spending slashed, as well as immigration from developing countries. Its leader was asked where her new voters came from.
I think there are more women and more young people, and perhaps from the Centre Party.
The tight three-way race means a shift to the centre-right. Marin's mishandling of the economy was the major issue that was challenged by the Conservatives and resonated with voters. Matthew Bray, TVB News.
Still ahead, the retail industry asks for an importation of labor. Parisians vote to ban for-hire electric scooters in the French capital. And world-renowned Japanese musician and actor Ryuichi Sakamoto dies. Welcome back. The retail sector says manpower shortages have led to poor work and service quality. While plans are afoot to import workers to alleviate shortages in many industries, it's a big no for minibus drivers. Sharon Tang tells us more.
Hong Kong is getting back on track in full force, but are there enough people to keep the engines running? Retail sector representatives today asked for a solution to the same problem, manpower shortage. A cosmetic chain representative says there are plans to expand its businesses, especially after the resumption of cross-border travel, but there are simply not enough frontline staff. A representative of a department store chain said there was no feedback for its job ads, despite offering much better benefits. Retail sector lawmaker Shiu Ka-fai surveyed 800 wholesale retail businesses and found 80% of them are short of manpower. He estimates there are at least 30,000 vacancies in the sector and suggested letting mainland residents who live in the Greater Bay Area work in Hong Kong and return home the same day. But minibus drivers are hitting the brakes on the idea of importing workers. Earlier, authorities suggested letting in imported workers to alleviate the shortage in the construction and transport industry, and to speed things up, skip the vetting process. Lawmaker Michael Look stressed drivers from other places are not familiar with driving styles in the city, let alone driving on a different side of the road. Others called out the reason for the manpower shortage. A union representative said, "We are working like robots. We only get paid $13,000 if we work 26 days, and that's not even enough to cover daily expenses." But lawmaker Frankie Yik said there has to be some imported workers to fill vacancies, otherwise several minibus routes may have to be suspended. He added if the plan goes ahead, these workers must pass professional training and exams in the city. Sharon Tang, TVB News.
With the rainy season approaching, the Geotechnical Engineering Office said there will also be an increase in the risk of landslides. While the department said it is difficult to predict the landslide situation this year, it urged the public to be cautious during the wet season. Mimo Singhai with more.
In Hong Kong, landslides often occur during or soon after rainstorms. According to the Geotechnical Engineering Office, only 76 reported landslides happened in Hong Kong last year, the lowest number since 2004. Despite the drop in reported cases, the GEO said the public should not overlook landslide risks due to the hilly terrain in the city. As to why residents have a relatively low awareness about landslide risks, the deputy head of the GEO, Sammy Jern, said it is due to the decrease in the number of reported landslides.
In recent years, there isn't any serious landslides or fatalities caused by the landslide. So it is natural that the public will feel that, the slope safety problem has been fixed. So the awareness has been dropping.
However, Jern said risks still remain.
From the past statistics, we are aware of about 300 landslides occurred in these natural hillside, which do not affect the publics. So they are never reported to the police or the fire service departments. But these landslides, actually, the occurrence very depends on the areas of the rainstorm.
The GEO said the department spends almost $1 billion per year to maintain slope safety in Hong Kong, including installing steel flexible barriers and constructing check dams. Meanwhile, to increase the public's awareness of the dangers and risks of landslides, the GEO launched a public educational project, the Bowen Road Slope Study Trial. Bowen Road Slope Study Trial has 8 different study points for the public to understand how different slope works. To get the information, you simply need to scan a QR code. For example, this one tells you about how different landscape treatment works. Mimo Singhai, TVB News.
And Parisians have voted to ban the French capital's for-hire electric scooters in a non-binding referendum that city authorities said they would follow. The vote was overwhelmingly in favor of banning the scooters, which have caused much disruption in the Paris streets. Last year, Paris registered 459 accidents with 3 fatalities. Now, the 15,000 machines are expected to disappear from the streets when the contract with the 3 operators expires at the end of August. Many are driven on pavements and left haphazardly parked, causing a nuisance. Ryuichi Sakamoto, a world-renowned Japanese musician and actor who composed for Hollywood hits such as The Last Emperor, has died. He was 71. Sakamoto was a pioneer of electronics music of the late 1970s and was one of the most influential musicians of that genre. Nazvi Karim reports.
Ars longa vita brevis. This phrase, a Latin translation of a Greek aphorism, was beloved by famed Japanese composer and actor Ryuichi Sakamoto. It suggests that artists come and go, but their art lives on. Indeed, Sakamoto came and went, but his art lives on and will continue to do so. He died at the age of 71 on March 28th while undergoing treatment for cancer, but his recording company Avex only announced it on Sunday. Sakamoto was diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014. In 2021, he revealed he was suffering from rectal cancer, and last year he said his condition was terminal. A world-class musician, Sakamoto left behind a legacy of pioneering electronic music and multiple awards. His most famous work was the score for the 1987 film The Last Emperor, for which he won an Oscar, Grammy and Golden Globe. He also scored and acted in 1983's BAFTA-winning Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence, and composed music for 2016's The Revenant. A decade earlier, he formed the seminal electronics group, the Yellow Magic Orchestra, with Haruomi Hosono and Yukihiro Takahashi. His penchant for experimenting symbolized by his main musical influences, the Beatles and classical French composer Claude Debussy.
I want to try many different things, styles. I want to have many experiences musically.
A music store in Tokyo today set up a special booth called Space Sakamoto Shinjuku to honor the late musician. This office worker said he has been listening to Sakamoto's music for the past 40 years. He is a special person to me, he said. Sakamoto lived mostly in New York in recent years, visiting Japan often, though like his music, he felt his identity went deeper than simply being Japanese.
I was never comfortable being Japanese or something, Since I was little, I always thought of, going beyond the walls or boundaries.
Sakamoto was also an activist, speaking out against nuclear power after the 2011 Fukushima earthquake and tsunami.
Keeping silent after Fukushima is barbaric.
Sakamoto is survived by his daughter, Miyu Sakamoto, a musician, whose tribute to her father was a social media post showing how long he lived. For his music, though, there is no closing date. Nazvi Karim, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching. Pearl Magazine is up shortly. Bye for now.